Hello and welcome to Weekly Open. I'm Brian. I got Cred and Don on the line. We'll get straight to it. Thanks for joining us for Weekly Open. Go to weeklyopen.com if you want to check old episodes. More importantly, if you're on YouTube right now, just hit like and subscribe and all that crap. We need your help. Bear markets, they're brutal, man. So we need you. We need you to share the word, the good word about Weekly Open. If you enjoy the show, tell your friends, tweet it, like it, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's officially too much promotion. So let's get to it. Don, how you doing? You're on the left.
Good. Had a little bit of a wild weekend because we got some medical news on Friday, and on Monday we got back that it was just a lab error. So just sitting there waiting for the results on the entire weekend, I was like, this is fucking shitty. But at least it turned out good in the end. So I'm quite happy about that.
So you're getting the transition surgery after all, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Going
great.
from a duck to a human.
There we go. That's what I meant. you really bailed me out on that one.
Cred, how are you? You got a nice beard going right now, man. I saw it on Twitter this morning.
Oh, it's just homelessness mode. This always happens. Like I used to just have a shaved head and shaved face and attend dodgy rallies. That last part isn't true. But I used to keep it very simple. But then, when you grow a beard, you have to take care of it because otherwise it looks like garbage. So I'd take care of it once, get it all fucking shaped up proper. And I'd feel good for like 2 days. And then it would just start growing again. And so I've capitulated at this point. I'm going full bear mode for the bear market. And I'm just gonna let it go, man.
I thought it's quite clean. It's got the shapeliness about it.
Oh, it's hideous, to be honest with you. Like maybe it's just the camera angle, but it's just all over the place, unkempt. I've got it on my neck. Some of it is ginger. It's disgusting. I am disgusting. But yeah, otherwise good.
All right. Well, good. I'm also disgusting, but I am wearing my Caterpillar shirt today. So, carrying the swag. If you spend enough money, they'll give you a $10 t-shirt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Worth it.
That's right. Nevertheless, this market, even though all this stupid news goes on, charts keep going to the right. I'm still depressed that we're at 17K for Bitcoin when you had that dollar nuke and the S&P recovery. So now Don, before the show, was saying the S&P looks like crap. So does that mean we're about to go to 10K to respond, like dump when they dump and don't go up when they go up? Is that the era that we're entering here, Don?
I don't know. I mean, I think the reason why we dumped really is the FTX shit. Honestly, like when the S&P was going up. So if anything, I think the next time, like if the S&P should go down, the next time it's going to go up, Bitcoin's going to go up with it. I don't think it's this whole only pain anymore. But yeah, it's like the lower time frames on the S&P is just crap, which. I mean, you can see, right? The S&P is down 1%, Bitcoin's down 0.1, trying to catch up right now, which is really annoying given we've had a few breakouts, especially on my beloved Litecoin, that I would have liked to see it go like a little bit further. But when you have...
And then everyone realized Litecoin is pointless.
I mean, crypto is pointless, eh? Might as well just buy Litecoin.
It's the testnet for Bitcoin, guys. It's digital silver. I didn't remember those narratives. That was fun. Yeah. Good old Litecoin.
So it's we're in this shitty situation where we didn't get the rally because of the FTX nuke, and there's a chance that we're gonna get the full-blown retrace. I don't think it's gonna be as brutal as it could have, like as people expect it to. I could see us hold the lows, for example, but. Yeah, it's kind of shitty to be in the situation where we would otherwise be trading at 24, maybe even like squeezed quite a bit higher. But Sam decided to dump all our money, all our tokens on us, and then make the market vanish on top of it. So we're kind of stuck in this shitty situation.
I still think it's a browser issue, personally. Unpopular opinion. as soon as you update Google Chrome, you can log in just fine.
Oh, it's a little bit of a dark one, brother.
You can't say too soon. I'm like desensitized to seeing that meth goblin everywhere at this point. Like I'm reverting back to humor.
Can I show y'all something really depressing?
Please.
Of course, always.
Yeah. So we talk about these more depressing than, hey, this broke down. The the last times we had real breakdowns in the dollar, they were full on bull markets for crypto. And so this time we did nothing but dump, even though we retraced a third of that move. So this is holy cow, this is a weekly chart. Yeah. So we're back in this retest of the green zone that we talked about, how that rally. And now it looks kind of bullish for the Dixie, that it's playing off of this previous breakout range. And here we are at 1200, 17K, whatever. And what makes me nervous is if this works its way up into this long consolidation, that's not great for us. And we got no bull market in this, in these weeks of down move by the Dixie. We got no bull market whatsoever.
Unless you're in Litecoin, apparently.
Yeah, unless you're in Litecoin. So I want to watch this closely to see if it's like a really strong rebound or if it does like a just sideways wiggle. In addition to this, there was also some like Jay Powell pivot type news. Like there's a lot of narratives that are shifting in the legacy markets, and it's kind of clouded out any conversation in crypto. So like, can we play a little catch up on some of that stuff so that we say, hey, if the FTX fallout and Contagion starts to dry up a little bit and we get back to closer correlation with legacy, like what should we be paying attention to? Do y'all have any thoughts on it?
Ooh, I mean, I've thought about it. It seems to be the case that it'll probably just not coincide time-wise. So by the time we actually get through a decent chunk of the Contagion and the bad news, etc., I'd be surprised if Legacy still has the kind of steam it has had in the last few weeks. So I think it's some sort of, for lack of a better term, a duration mismatch, right? We've heard that a little bit. Yeah. But in this context, it's like Legacy's been steaming up, risk indices up, dollar down. So that should have worked in our favor. It did like very, very marginally, but it was overshadowed by the Contagion stuff. It seems to me that what's slightly more likely is that it takes longer for the Contagion stuff to clear. And by the time it does, and we get like whatever crypto native flows and so on and so forth, or even more correlated flows, we won't have that same legacy boost that we've enjoyed over the last like whatever 5-6 weeks. Those two things, unfortunately, seem to be mistimed. Like we got rugged on this risk asset rally in the first place because of the FTX implosion. I don't think time-wise it super matches up for us to catch up or bounce with legacy, because by the time seems to me by the time we get through it, like legacy will look slightly different, or at least not as strong as it has in the past few weeks.
My watch lists like straight up aren't working on TradingView right now, so I can't actually get to my non-crypto watch lists. Maybe it's a sign that, oh, never mind. I said that and then they showed up. I shamed TradingView live and they said I will reappear. I wanted to pull up the rates.
Oh, nice.
I'll get it back to you, Don. Because I guess this is the other kind of big potential macro driver. So we had 4 pretty strong down weeks to where the 30 years back to 3.6, the 2 years at 4.3. So that spread on those, because they were basically the same. So that spread on those has widened quite a bit, where I guess that's indicative of people expecting this pausing. So the lower end of the curve continue to go up a bit because it's closer to the actual, Fed driven moves. But the 30-year kind of calling the bluff is what it appears to me in that regard, where it's starting to taper back down. Which is healthy, right? That's kind of what we should see. On the 30-year, it's a little concerning, the steepening of that curve for the 210, 230, whatever you want to compare, 1030. And I've seen some people worry about that, and I've heard that's why apparently Powell may be starting to soften up because of just how steep that curve is going. But I like the trajectory, I guess, of the 30-year is my point.
Yeah, it's starting to at least come down a little bit, right? Because it's been up only. But yeah, I think in general, it does feel like we're entering a period of maybe sideways. It's kind of my feeling. We've had undershoot, basically the COVID crash. We had overshooting. I mean, you just need to look at oil. You need to look at like a bunch of assets all over the place, basically. Same with Bitcoin. Like everything just went completely fucking crazy. And what we haven't had yet is just sideways. And I think sideways would make a lot of sense. I just look at the S&P on the monthly, and I'm like, okay, there's a lot of room to go sideways here. There's a big range. And we're probably going to be influenced by that, trading crypto. But like this, anything in here, I could see. Like anything between 4.3 and 3.7 just makes sense to me, which would be really boring, right? If the S&P moves, and this is a big range for traditional markets, right? Like a 12%, 14% range is quite big. And in general, it doesn't really range that much, but when it does so for a while. I mean, you can see here, for example, that was like a year of ranging. We've had that before. We've had a couple times.
We're very volatile. I mean, that's 2 significant dips in that 2015.
Yes. Yeah, you have like you still have ample opportunities to trade. It's just not like as trendy as it was before. And I could honestly see this do the same thing. That's kind of my best case scenario, honestly. If we just start going for 4.3K right now and then start dumping heavily again, I'd be very worried, because then it would just kind of look like the typical market cycle chart. And given we've had like retail come in heavily to basically all in any kind of index they can find, it would make sense to kind of get like a little bit of a washout thing going. I just hope this was enough, and then you can go sideways and actually go back to up. But yeah, that's kind of how I look at it right now. So I'm thinking anything between 3.743 makes sense, and then in that is basically gonna kind of get Bitcoin range bound as well, probably. And that range is probably, if you're like really, really negative, I think 14 to 19K, like a range in here. That'd be fine. I think we could also spring back up in range there, like above 19, 20K. But that would mean, in my eyes anyway, that we would have to get rid of all the contagion, and I'm not entirely sure. So like it's pretty tough to call this on Bitcoin, honestly, just if you could, because you usually have to look at both, right? You don't just look at Bitcoin and you're like, okay, Bitcoin's just gonna bounce here and then reverse. Support levels are gonna work, but they're not necessarily gonna reverse stuff as long as the S&P doesn't play ball, at least in the last few years. And I mean, it's just how it is, which is sad, but it's just how we have to trade right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, your best case scenario, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately compared to alternatives, is just volatility compression across the board, both in the S&P, not setting any new lows and being stuck in that range, and similar for BTC. You know, historically, like even the COVID crash on a weekly chart which was like a liquidity event in the utmost definition of that term. That still spent like quite a few weeks sort of hovering around where those kind of candle bodies formed, and volatility was really dry there. I remember like it was yesterday, that slow crawl from like 4K to 5 whatever, and that was agony, but and, you know, it just unfolded one way or another. So I think, you know, if you're going to make bottom reliant arguments, I want to see vol come down both in the S&P and BTC as well, and ideally hold their ranges, because, you know, if S&P continues down, you know, if there's downtrend continuation in the S&P, like it's very unlikely we'll be immune to that, right? And that'll probably make new Bitcoin lows, almost certainly. I think I think there's a diminishing effect there at the very least. Like if the S&P does break new lows, like will we make new lows? Like yes, very likely, but is it going to be the same, like, you know, 30K to 20K type of leg or whatever else? I really don't think so. But yeah, I think if you're going to make an argument for, you know, Q1, Q2, and just sort of next year, if you want to see something constructive, I want to see vol come down. You know, price aside, I want to see volatility compress, and that would get me very interested, I think.
When you say that, you mean in crypto, right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, legacy vol hasn't been too high. If you look at VIX, it's been coming down. But I think how that would translate to legacy is no new lows, and that kind of range that Don outlined remaining intact. So like legacy sideways and crypto vol compression with no new lows either. That would be pretty neat. But I still need to see some good evidence of that compression, and also of legacy entering a trending ranging environment as opposed to a trending one. Because by all technical parameters, like the S&P 500 is still in a downtrend, right? Like I know it did that failed breakdown at support or whatever, which produced a very nice bounce, but that there's still a dominant trend in place there.
Yeah, the downtrend at the bottom took the VIX basically to its typical kind of range high, but not the extraordinary type spike that it has had at times where things get truly chaotic. So it was more what you had talked about a lot, Cred, like just kind of like a sustained, typical, controlled drawdown, and it hit the top of the range of the VIX, and then it collapsed back to 20, which is kind of its typical low. All this easy money VIX levels, this 11, 12, 13 VIX, that's like a different era. So I think what would be interesting is if the VIX really lives below 20 for a sustained period of time. That's as indicative as it would be if breaking above 30 in any sustained way, because those things just historically haven't happened for a very long period of time. But it could live in this range while going sideways, like that inside that 20 to 30 range, to your point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. In general, I think we'll see legacy relevance come down over time, both in terms of just correlation and market impact and everything else. I mean, that speaks to Don's argument in the past, where at a certain market cap, it just becomes much easier to resist outside influences, so to speak, for crypto itself. But that requires the contagion period to sort of go away and nothing to break in the S&P either. But I think with time that's going to go down, which is good. And again, even if the S&P does make new lows, I don't think it'll be as drastic an impact as it had in the past in crypto. But we need to work through our own contagion. Like, that's the thing, right? I see people making a lot of arguments now, assessing the correlation and potential implications from S&P doing this, dollar doing that. But I just think crypto contagion flows are so dominant. We just need to sort of get through that period, however long it may take, and then we can look at a better sort of data set as to what the correlation and the relationship there is. I'm not comfortable looking for using correlation data in current market conditions, because I think there's just too much noise from crypto for that to be good data,
Yeah. Speaking, if we get back to crypto and crypto news a bit, outside of Sam stuff, which I think everybody's pretty much hit with a hammer as hard as they can, I'm interested in the Barry stuff and DCG. Like, they basically played the opposite of most, where they're just silent, right? Do y'all think that means that there's still fallout to come, and it's just being worked on in the background? They're not going to say anything until there's something severe, or do you think they might have worked through the biggest of their struggles? Or what are your concerns in terms of kind of the next ball to drop for crypto?
Don, Jeff, strong views here?
Not really, no. I mean, honestly, it depends really. If prices go lower, you're probably going to have people come out again. And they're all quiet now because they're hoping prices go up. But yeah, I don't know is the answer. Like, I don't have any extra info, and I'd hope that we're through most of it, but it
does seem like the opportunity for larger dominoes to fall are definitely being, they're kind of done, right? Like, how do you get too much larger stuff? But the fallout from a smaller player perspective can probably go on for a long time. The ones that just manage to stay out of the limelight, but they're secretly insolvent. like those seem to be likely still to me. Smaller exchanges, potentially that have FTX exposure, different market makers, hedge funds, whatever. But it's hard to see, like, are you going to have something that forces a stable coin problem, or I guess DCG is in the hole and there's no escaping it, and that has fallout on something else that's even bigger. Who knows? Like another exchange that we expected couldn't do that or wouldn't do that. Barring that, it seems like maybe we would enter that territory where bad news just becomes sideways because it can't be as bad as what FTX was.
Yeah, I think that kind of seems likely. And the thing is, you can wash players out of the market by going sideways, right? just remember back to our good old 3 to 4K range here in 2018. A bunch of people and a bunch of companies basically quit the space, right? Even though like price wasn't really going down anymore. Because a lot of people survived this crash or like barely survived it. And then the sideways and the low volatility and the low volumes and everything just kind of did the rest. So I could see something like that again, where it just goes sideways for quite a while, coils up, and then you see a bunch of people washed out of the space, even though prices aren't really doing anything. That's at least my hope, I guess. I mean, I bought a bunch, so my my perspective is always going to be a little bit more bullish leaning than it usually would be, because I'm in a position. It just makes sense. But I have the hope that we're through most of the big shit, and now we just have to kind of get through the little shit to get to where we should be, which is much higher. That's at least my hope.
The GBTC premium, or to kind of put a bow on the berry stuff, I guess this is one of the things that could provide some hints in terms of what's going on there. It is back to 42%, so it made up the low of that was about 45% on the discount to NAV. So at 42%, it's trying to potentially, peek its head the other direction. That seems rational to me. Like, sure, of course, like discount to NAV can be something, but right now, like honestly, if you feel like there's upside for Bitcoin, isn't there more upside for this? Like to narrow that gap at some point, or is it just perpetually going to be the worst product on earth and no one's going to do anything about that? You know what I mean?
Well, the thing is, there's no way to anchor this thing. That's the issue, right? It's like it felt cheap and it was at 10, it used to be at a 20% premium. Then it gets in line and you think, okay, that's a good price. If there's going to be a premium, if premium's going to come back to the market, then it gets discounted 10, 20, 30. Like, I think we want to anchor this as huge, like as sort of psychological human beings being like, this is quote unquote cheap. But functionally speaking, there's no mechanism for this thing to trade in line with the underlying. And now, especially with DCG, like DCG is still in trouble, right? Like the most recent I read from the block was that Genesis owes creditors at least 1.8 billion, and there are now ad hoc groups being put together. We've heard nothing from the GBTC from the DCG side. Half of that is via Gemini Earn, and now they're creating these ad hoc groups of creditors to try to negotiate something like that. That to me still seems like fundamentally unresolved, and that's like a really big block, in the crypto ecosystem. So I think the fact that they're silent, especially with the context, as you mentioned, of FTX as loudly as they went down, I think that may have like conferred not a false sense of security, but definitely like a passive view of it, given it's not making headlines. But fundamentally, we know this has been an issue for like 3 weeks now, and it appears that they're no closer to resolving it than they were in the past. So I mean, that's definitely not great. And I was looking at just headlines before jumping on the show. As far as the sort of crypto ecosystem goes, it's actually been a very rough week headlines wise. Kraken, 30% of workforce gone. Bybit, it looks like 30% of workforce gone as well. Circle cancelled their SPAC. Orthogonal Credit, I think, or orthogonal trading, defaulted in a bunch of like Maple Finance loans. Like it's still having, there's still an effect there. Now it'll be curious to look at the market impact of those things, specifically with Genesis and DCG. That to me is a huge domino that I still want some resolution to. But the whole, like we even saw post Luna, right? This Contagion stuff took like months to play out. Some of it was happening as recently as a few weeks ago. So I don't know. To me, maybe on the price impact side, we're coming to some sort of low in terms of these things. DCG Genesis is still a huge domino, and I wouldn't be price agnostic towards that one. But for the smaller stuff, I think we're towards the tail end of, every kind of rumor of bad news nukes the whole book like 5-10%. I think that's less likely, with the exception of a worst case resolution to DCG Genesis. I think that they're just too big for the market to ignore or sort of price in sufficiently.
I will say, in terms of trying to anchor, I believe I'm certain it was Lynn Alden that talked about other structured products, meaning, a security wrapper on some other group of commodities, securities, whatever else, that charge a fee for that bundle. Where she talked about, especially based on the higher fees, 1.5%, 2% or whatever these different entities charge for the privilege of having that product, something like 8 to 12% is an anchor that you can typically use for like, what is the discount? The premium was definitely weird for GBTC to ever have, because most of these structured products carry a discount because of the inefficiency of the way it carries it plus the fees. So if you were to anchor it, if it was normal like others, then it should be able to get back up to that type of range. If there's a way for people to effectively manage this trade on like to create that delta, right, of the -42 to -12, how to carry that in a way that doesn't have tons of risk in it. Also with DCG being solvent and GBTC not being affected by whatever happens to DCG. So I do think you can kind of anchor it to that in your head, but it takes a little bit of squinting and, finagling. But if you're a risk taker, which I hold a position in GBTC right now, opened at close to that 45% discount. I don't even know what that means in terms of the actual price, but like that, to me, that's a reasonable place to carry risk, as long as you know that the downside is it gets nuked somehow and liquidated to like the underlying assets, and who knows what happens. But I kind of like it as a trade personally. Am I y'all think I'm crazy?
Probably not, but it's really tough to justify. Like for me, the trade just doesn't exist, because if I wanted to buy something long term, I just buy Bitcoin and I wouldn't have to pay taxes if I held for a year plus. So I'd just rather do that, because my taxes are roughly in line with the 40% that you could gain if it comes back to 0%. But even just thinking about it, like I was interested the entire way down, because like, oh, this is quite the trade opportunity. But I think like sitting in this and seeing the discount be like this low for like a year or 2 or 3 just drain you, especially given like it wouldn't be a problem if you didn't have to pay management fees, right?
Yeah, it's the
Because
2%. It's like a leach on your position.
yes, I definitely say like, hey, this is like decent bet, because it's almost 50% cheaper. At one point it was almost 50% cheaper, and then it's a decent bet. Like the upside is quite big, and it probably doesn't go to 0. But given that you're gonna just get bled out, you don't only have to be right price wise, but you also have to be right time wise. Given that it's 40%, you have like a little bit of time, unless you expect it to actually just stay like this forever. And that's also a risk you have to kind of think about. So it's like there's a lot of shit that could go wrong.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's like a brainless, like long move. It's just, I think it's a risk I'm willing to carry. So Seppin in the chat asked, why would you buy GBTC while they owe 2 billion or whatever amount? And the justification for that is because GBTC is the one thing that they have that's like a point of leverage, a point, a selling point for DCG, because this thing prints money, that 2% of underlying holdings, and also you can't get out of it. It can only get out by the the underlying Bitcoin is there. Now it can go to 0 if the underlying Bitcoin does not exist, but we have pretty good assurances that that underlying Bitcoin does exist. So I think that this product would carry through any sort of bankruptcy, transition of ownership, whatever, for GBTC itself. To me, the worst case scenario is they liquidate the underlying Bitcoin, nuke the price of actual Bitcoin at the same time that the delta on this actually moves up, but it doesn't matter because Bitcoin's like $5,000 now. At that point, my net worth goes to 0 anyway. So what's the difference? So like, so that's why I personally consider this discount the worst thing that can happen is it goes to 50%, 60%, 65% for some unknown reason, and I lose half the trade in that scenario, because this product just continues to get nuked, like perpetually more of the same, which is why people like 3AC and others got wrecked to this point, right? Because they were thinking the same thing that I'm thinking right now when the discount was 15, 20, 25%, and then it just kept going. So I'm not saying that that's impossible, but to me, that's the greatest risk. Bankruptcy and other things like that are not the greatest risk to me.
Yeah. I think for me, the greatest risk taking a trade would be that they just keep milking everyone that's sitting in it. Basically just not doing anything with it, and then you hold it for 10 years and the discount just stays at 40%. You don't gain anything back, and then you pay, in those 10 years, you pay like 20% of your position, which is honestly like, I mean, it's a risk that makes sense in my head somehow, like given that they probably couldn't just run it for 10 years like that. I think the outcries of people that were holding it would be too large. So yeah, I see your trade idea. I think the lower it goes, the more attractive it gets. For me, like I said, I can capture those 40% just by buying spot and then holding it for a year. So I'm just
totally.
not interested in that.
I'm just saying that's what you just said as the risk is what it's been doing since 2017, right? Because the current price is basically the same as when Bitcoin was, 6K. Like this carried a premium here, but the actual relative to NAV at 45% off is an equivalent closer to what, like 9K. So because it was but it's the same for someone actually holding this product. It's no different than if they bought in 2017,
which is fucking wild.
Yeah, like
that part is insane.
Yeah, imagine being right on Bitcoin and then having bought this shit. It's just so sad.
Like Bitcoin could have 2x, and you're still at the same dollar value for your GBTC holdings, plus you pay 2% per year. So really, you're off about 10%. So it's like that can happen. To your point, that can actually absolutely happen for another 5 or 6 years. But anyway.
Well, see, the difficulty is with the GBTC product, in my mind at least, the way I categorize it, is you punt it in one of two ways. One is you treat it like an arbitrage and you have some sort of thesis for convergence. That trade to me is like unclear. I don't have any alpha there. And the other way you punt it is some version of a directional trade just on BTC if you want the underlying exposure. But because you're paying those fees and the liquidity profile is different, like you're paying 2% in a market where at the moment kind of futures are backwardated, right? So like there's a world in which you're getting paid for that position as opposed to paying for it, and you have this infinite discount risk as well. So so to me, like I don't have any alpha on the arbitrage side, and to me it's not clear that it's in the current conditions the best instrument to speculate on just like upside in Bitcoin, and that's why it's sort of neither here nor there.
Yeah, I guess one other element would be if I were at the SEC, I would actually want to put significant attention on this product as one of the only ways that retail customers, my constituents, have exposure to Bitcoin in accounts that should be protected, right? Like retirement accounts, regulated securities accounts with American, TD Ameritrades and Charles Schwab's and all that type of stuff. So I therefore want to put my scrutiny on this product in a way that can protect customers with whatever the underlying NAV is, and essentially force DCG into a better solution. So that's obviously optimistic for me to think that Gary's going to protect me and eliminate this gap. But again, like I think that's a rational role for the SEC to play. Is like, hey, look, we have a big problem over here, and our constituents are affected. So what can we do to help assist this product to get back closer to the actual NAV of Bitcoin? Whether we want an ETF or not, this product is a problem, and a lot of people hold it. A lot of our constituents. So anyway, I've spent enough time talking about GBTC, but I figured I would brainstorm with you guys my rationale for this in case anybody else was trying to consider the same. Maybe we didn't do it perfectly, but these are some of the arguments that you can make.
Yeah, Don, what's the scary candle that's been printed while we were pontificating?
Oh, you mean this 1 hour candle here?
Yeah, what have you done?
Nothing. I mean, the S&P has done this. This is just us copy trading the S&P. It's quite nice that we're still up. And honestly, who cares about Bitcoin? Bitcoin's old news. It's all about Litecoin these days. We all know.
Can you get any worse?
You haven't believed me, but people are starting to believe me now. I'll actually talk about it real quick, just because it's the only trade that I'm really having and have been
Also, to be
having.
clear, for Don, Litecoin going up is a harbinger of doom, unless he's long, in which case it's fine and it's actually a good thing.
Exactly.
Just to set the context.
Exactly. That's how it always works.
After you pitch that, I'm going to talk about a coin that actually did something relevant and is also not Litecoin. So just
Okay, I'm down, but don't call it irrelevant ever again.
now Don will definitely call it irrelevant as soon as he dumps it.
Yes, 100%. No, but in general, like, my trade thesis has basically been this thing's bottom, basically where Bitcoin should have. So if you look back, we had this big wipeout on the 13th of June. This big new candle of a 3AC capitulating, and in general just a bunch of shit going wrong. And that 13th of June low was actually the low for Litecoin. And Litecoin just bounced massively off of the lows, which is like a good sign, right? If you're looking for strength in a market and you see like a massive capitulation on like Bitcoin, and then you see an altcoin just go completely ballistic, it's usually a good sign, right? So I was looking at this for a while, obviously consolidated, and then it started moving up, so I bought it. But the interesting part about this is that no one really gives a shit about Litecoin, right? Because, like Ledger eloquently put, it's pretty irrelevant. It's an old coin, doesn't really have anything fancy going for it. Still put in that candle, which made me like go, okay, there's something going there. And obviously it's been quite good on the Bitcoin pair front. It's just been up only basically, and I've been trading it around. Setup is basically just a breakout of the out of the range at 60, and yeah, it's been quite nice trading. It's been pretty straightforward, honestly. Whenever Bitcoin goes down, Litecoin Bitcoin outperforms. Whenever Bitcoin goes up, Litecoin Bitcoin outperforms. So it's kind of like you want to make some money, no matter, like, you're gonna make money if Bitcoin goes up, and you're gonna lose less. At least that's how it's been trading. Doesn't have to trade like that, but it's been nice. Target wise, 100, 120, and then if you want to moon it completely, 300. I think that those are like the reasonable targets. Obviously, 120 being like 100, 120, 130 being the more reasonable ones, and 300 being the less reasonable ones. But that's kind of what I'm aiming for, unless Bitcoin completely shits the bed and goes to 14, 12, 10K, then I think this is just going to collapse as well, which is always possible, but seems not necessarily likely right now. I think Bitcoin's more going to go sideways than just break new lows, at least in the next week or 2 or 3. So that's my trade. It's been my trade, honestly, for the last few weeks. I've just been trading Litecoin around, ignoring everything else, and it's been doing wonders.
There you go. All right. So I'm going to present a similar trade idea, I guess. Cred, should you share a tab and prepare for the same? Put you on the spot.
Oh dear, here we go. Sure.
So I don't know if y'all saw the news, but Pointless Governance token Uniswap is considering via governance a fee switch. And it caused some I guess it caused this spike up the other day. But if they turn on fees, then it could actually create a justification for the token to carry value in addition to just some kind of proxy. But I keep looking at some of this DeFi stuff. Like it doesn't seem to want to make significant new lows. Most of it bottomed back in June, and then since then has consolidated. If you look at Uniswap, Aave, Synthetics, they kind of all do similar things. But the coordination of the fee switch also fascinates me. And then when I go look at that relative pair, Uniswap versus ETH or Uniswap versus BTC, same thing, I think, for Aave and a couple others. I don't own this, by the way. I'm just pointing it out. This long-term consolidation really interests me, and it makes me wonder if you do have sideways in ETH, could you get moves in these in some other arenas because one of the best things that could happen in a bear market is you actually get these like cyclical rotations, right? Where DeFi has a little bit of a move here or there, and then ETH does, and then BTC does, and it's not everything moving in lockstep, but you get your Litecoin trades and your DeFi trades and your alt L1 trades. And part of me wonders, is the alt L1 trade so down in the scheme of things, like people uninterested in playing it, that you kind of have this arrival again of other like what you would call like useful crypto protocols as they survive, evolve, whatever. And in my head, it seems like the DeFi trade is a reasonable candidate for that, at least amongst certain corners. Litecoin is another one, or not Litecoin. God.
Oh yes, perfect. that's a Freud Versprecher.
So he did say, he did say useful protocols. So
yeah, Chainlink from May 2022 had basically been sideways on the dollar pair. I don't have it on the ETH pair, but the BTC pair bottomed in a significant way. Also, just a bear market favorite coin that definitely gets used a lot, and Litecoin people are Chainlink people, Link people. They love giving me crap because I talk about how I think this thing's just going to go perpetually down. I've really only said that since it topped. So to be fair, I did not consider it the coin to be in throughout most of the bull market after it outperformed so much in the bear market. But it does intrigue me now. And anyway, so there's a handful of these DeFi centric important protocol type coins that I think might have a chance. And it all depends on, in my opinion at least, Ethereum not like breaking down severely. But I think if you have this like bottom is in type of sideways on Ethereum, you could get that positive move on a rotation basis for some of these other sectors. So that's something that I want to watch, because I would love to be able to actively trade some of these sector rotations.
I actually really like the Uni BTC and Uni USD charts.
Yeah, the Uni BTC and Uni ETH both look amazing to me. Oh, ENS is another one. If I can't find it, I can't. I'm pathetic right now. There it is. I can't use my brain. So this is ENS USD, but ENS it's going to look even better versus ETH and stuff if I pull those up. But yeah, the Uni one is one of the best looking ones for sure.
Yeah, I actually like. I've been talking about Link. I really like it as well, just in general, just chart wise, even against Bitcoin looks really good. I've been shit talking the Link Marines for a long time too. We've kind of been doing it together. It's been a pleasure. But I think it doesn't really make much sense to shit talk him anymore, given that they've come like reasonably close to call this a reversal. We've had this kind of big range in here. We've had this capitulation down here, and we're back in the range. It just looks decent against Bitcoin. Like I really don't see any reason to be bearish against Bitcoin on this thing. And on the USD pair, it's basically been ranging, and it lost the range for a little bit, but reclaimed it immediately afterwards. And that looks decent as well, right? As long as Bitcoin can hold, this looks good. And it's the same with Uni, really. Look at this. You had this kind of range, like you fell out of support basically, and now we've been ranging, and it looks decent to me. Like support's been holding. It's just a question of, is Bitcoin going to hold to allow this to move? I think there's a chance. I like both of them. And the interesting bit, right? Because I commented on like basically the Litecoin trade and the 13th of June, right? And if you look at the Uni bottom, that was the 13th of June as well. Just completely went ballistic afterwards against Bitcoin, not against USD, right? So the interesting part is, like, if you were sitting in Uni, for example, since that time, since the 13th, you actually didn't make new lows. Like this was the low, and it's been like somewhat decent. Like if you bought any during any of that time back then, you've actually not been getting any heat during what I would call like pretty shitty time in Bitcoin, right? Where we've been kind of just rocking everyone left and right. And a lot of other coins actually went down as well. But the ones that actually did really well during this crash have been continuing to do well against Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin's been losing value, so they haven't broken out on the USD pairs. And how that can play out, you can see on Litecoin, right? It broke, like it's been holding, and this is actually, it's actually been stronger because the range actually just stayed the range. It didn't do this breakdown thing, because people were just too willing to buy it, and wouldn't let it break down basically. And that went up ever since it broke the range high by like 20-30% against USD, right? And then you look at the Bitcoin pair, and this thing is up 200% if I do it correctly from the low, like all the way. And that's quite nuts, right? That's just like, this is a hidden kind of old, like mini old season. It's just, this thing is that Bitcoin's been dumping so hard that you cannot see it because the USD pair's just been too depressed. It's
even sushi looks good.
Yeah, same as sushi. Like there's a few coins that look really good against Bitcoin. They're waiting for Bitcoin to kind of stabilize so they can break out on the USD pairs. And I actually like the look of a lot of them. And they're down 90%, right? So you could get, if Bitcoin puts in any strength, you could get like a 2x, 3x, 4x, and that'd just be a bear market rally, right? You could get a bear market old season, which is just 2x, 3x, 4x and on the USD pair, and it'd still be down 50%. And it still probably would go back down again, but that's an interesting trade idea. Or
it's a season
trade
stack sats via altcoin trades. We got a good question in the chat. I see wrecked people said, since we're talking about irrelevant coins, what about ADA? And that's my point about, I don't think the alternative layer ones, the smart contract layer ones, there's no demand for block space of significance right now. So ETH has plenty of block space. It's the premier L1 to do compute in. So therefore, why do you really care about the alternative layer ones and their ability to scale at the moment? At least from a narrative sense, that carried 2021. So now the expectation that it will carry a bear market doesn't seem right to me. Whereas the things that were hated during the bull market that still carry relevance probably have a better chance. That's both the Litecoin trade and the DeFi trade. So,
I mean, there's the Contagion coins as well, right? The L1s, they're all the fucking VC-fested wrecked coins. They've got that overhang as well, part of the same basket.
What an incredible name, Contagion coins.
Yeah.
I mean, that just looks garbage in comparison. No? Yeah. Like, I just look at those two charts in comparison, and I'm like, why the fuck would I want to be holding ADA? Like, I don't get it. Like, both are shit, both are irrelevant. I'd just much rather hold the coin that actually looks good in comparison to the one that looks like shit. To me, anyway.
I mean, like on the altcoin front, people have been waiting for like a sectoral rotation type of move for literally the entire year, and there's just been no evidence of the market like that being reflected in the market structure. Like we went from, the bear market won't affect all assets and it will be like spread across the market and there'll be dispersion. That didn't happen. Now the goalpost has been shifted to like sectoral bear market rallies or whatever. That hasn't come to fruition either. As far as I can see, the dominant kind of altcoin trading has been you're either trading catalysts, like very new, specific, time-sensitive stuff, or you're just very long, literally the strongest stuff in the market that actually did break out, like Don's Litecoin idea, for example. If it's not either of those, I'm personally not super convinced of a lot of these like might look strong if everything else looks strong type of things. Because if it were really strong, it would have broken out already, a bit like Litecoin. And if it hasn't, well, then kind of a lot of these charts look the same to me. So I don't know. I think those are two good criteria, as far as criteria go, those two make sense to me. Like either just overtly super fucking strong, and that gives you like clear invalidation. It's already shown that it's strong, or kind of catalyst oriented, which is fairly short term. If it's not one of those, I mean, a lot of these altcoins just been drifting for months and months and months. I don't personally see a super strong case for like this is the inflection point for a lot of the middle names that look I don't know, that stop dumping for some period of time, I suppose.
I used to call Monero concrete. Because it was very heavy all the time. But it also is in the same category. But Cred, I think your point is very warranted. It's like these are trades that could happen, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're like high likelihood. But if you're seeking something to do, then that's an arena that you could play in. Is that fair to say? Like you're not saying it's
sure.
You're just saying it's not like it's like terribly plus EV or
Sure.
a high conviction. Is that kind of the point?
Yeah, I think that's fair. And also, like, for example, like Don made the case for LTC BTC and LTC USD or whatever. If you're going to rotate into something else, you have to some extent cater for the fact that not only will the alternate, like the other altcoin you bought, it not only is it going to go up on its own terms, but it has to outperform the stuff that has already been going up and has shown strength, right? And that's amidst the market that has shown no appetite for any type of meaningful or sustained rotations whatsoever. I guess broadly speaking, that's my biggest concern. Like people want sectoral rotations, and we have no evidence of sectoral rotations. We have asynchronous pumps and dino coins, and then we have like the Contagion coins dying off. But the kind of dispersion that people are accounting for just simply hasn't happened yet. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but I'd be cautious on jumping on the like the organized market train, because like I don't know, that just hasn't been the case so far.
Cred's pissing on our cereal, Don.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
No, not at all. I literally defended the idea. If anything, I said if you're going to long something, like make sure it's strong already, right? Like it's the whole thing of almost the inverse bull market logic. People are like, oh, well, this is really strong, so now I'm going to long other names so they can catch up. That was terrible advice in the bull market.
Yeah, okay.
Because usually the thing that kept going up just kept going up and outperforming everything else. I think you can sort of transplant similar logic to these conditions, where if it's strong, it's not a lot to ask to like show me that it's actually strong, as opposed to, well, it will be strong when I'm right type of thing,
I'm with you now, and I totally agree. Yeah, lots of stuff's just going to keep going down.
Yeah,
particularly.
I think in general, like at some point, if, for example, my Litecoin trade works out, which is really like it's not a given, right? This is already up quite a bit. I'm definitely reaching, but I mean, sometimes you just want to reach, especially in crypto. Just makes like the only way to kind of get the crazy 10x's is to reach, right? Otherwise, you'll just take the 20% and then you'll be done with it, and then you'll be forever be like mad at yourself for selling early, right? But most of the time, it's actually the better trading advice, right? When you're just like, okay, just take the 20% and then look for something else. But I think if my trade idea works out and Litecoin goes like crazy, you could actually see like some rotation. At some point, we've seen that before. Back in 2018, for example, Litecoin went crazy, and then people were like, okay, what's the next thing? XRP went crazy. What's the next thing? And then like you can get these kind of nice rotations going, but you have to have something go really, really crazy first. And for the people that don't want to jump into these kind of shitty, muddy waters with me, makes a lot of sense to just wait for one thing to go completely nuts. And then obviously, like at some point, if something is up 400%, 500%, you don't want to be buying it anymore, right? But then you can start looking where the money might go next. And you can wait for that, right? And you can wait for that for 2, 3, 4 years if you have to. I think that situation is going to come again. Like we've had that every couple of years. I don't think that's going to change necessarily. It's not necessarily the best time for it, given everything's just kind of like risk appetite has been low. But who knows? Maybe that's going to come in a year. Maybe it's going to come in 2 years. But definitely be ready for it, right? When you see one thing, like one major thing, not just like one tiny shitcoin or like a scam, like an obvious scam, like Hex, for example. Like if that goes crazy, it doesn't have any impact on anything else. But if you see something that's a major thing that goes completely nuts, then you don't want to be thinking, okay, how can I short this thing? You want to be thinking, okay, how can I find the next thing where the money is going to rotate into? Right now, we haven't had that at all yet. I mean, I'm like euphoric about my Litecoin move, and it's up from like 60 where I bought it to 80. That's nothing, right? Like that's something that we would joke about. Like people that only made 20% in like 4 weeks would be the laughing stock of crypto just like a year or two ago. And so yeah, it's not necessarily like I'm saying it's time. I'm just saying like I'm just taking trades, and if it goes crazy or if anything else goes crazy, you want to be aware. You don't necessarily just want to be blindly shorting it, because that's kind of the attitude that I've been seeing on Twitter and on social media all over the place. Like something goes up, you want to be shorting it, and that just seems kind of stupid at this point.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Can I share with y'all one other idea? It's a short idea, and I've talked about it previously, and it just continues to look horrendous to me. It looks like Tesla might actually be rolling over finally. So it had that little dump and then retrace, and now it looks, I mean, it looks so bad. And there's few stocks that I can think of that they still can deserve to kind of justify their overvaluation. Their price to earnings is still at like a 60x. And it's just from a pure valuation perspective, still super high. It looks like it wants to roll over. And then the best thing yet is because Elon Musk is like having to spend money on Twitter. This is the thing that he has to sell to spend money on Twitter. You know, like his funding of everything else in his life is by selling this stock perpetually. It's down about 50% off the highs, but it looks like it's one of those where it's like, yeah, it's down 50%, but it can go down another 50%. And it would not surprise me if at the end of 2023, this thing is under 100.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a perpetual Tesla hater anyway, so send it down.
It's Don's FA framework: Litecoin good, Tesla bad.
Oh yeah.
I just think the more I look at the electric car market, they obviously disrupted it and caused the electric cars to become dominant. But they did not manage to maintain this necessity of being a growth tech company valuation. So like, I just think they're going to move into becoming a car company because they're going to look more like all the other car companies as the other car companies pull up. But they all trade at multiples that are fractions of theirs. Even if you know, everything else stays the same, just the multiples change the way that people view the future. So they can move down perpetually on a relative basis. And anyway, Rami says the Toyota Prius changed the electric car market. But sure, hybrids, but Tesla made, everybody has fully electric cars now, and that's because of Tesla. Tesla disrupted that. Tesla is making everyone think about autonomous driving. They achieved those goals, but it doesn't mean that their stock is going to continue to win. Anyway, just one other random idea that I had. Do you want to close this with anything? Thoughts?
I think I'm good on thoughts. We've talked enough.
Well, I can't say anything after that. So yeah, no, we're good. Like he says, we've talked enough. I'm not going to go on a tangent, am I?
Sorry about that.
That's okay. We'll end it there. We appreciate everybody joining us once again. Your view means a lot to us. Thank you. Hit like, subscribe, tell people if you like Weekly Open. We'd appreciate that. Hope you have a great day, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.